Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stardust. Today, we'll be talking to Dino Athanassiou about his participation in the original 1996 Space Jam movie. Stay tuned.
Everybody get up, it's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for sticking around and welcome to Stardust. Before we begin, please remember to give us a big thumbs up, click the bell notification, and if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. I have also added below Dino's Instagram link. Make sure to follow Dino.Athanassiou. I also like to invite you to drop a comment and let us know what you like about our episodes. If you have any questions or want us to talk about anything in particular, write a comment below. We would really like to hear from you. And of course, we appreciate you watching all our videos. Now, enough of me talking. Let me introduce to you Dino Athanassiou. Hi, Dino. Thanks for being on the show again.
Hi, Robbie. Nice to see you.
Hey, Dino, just so you know, I did reach to MJ, but well, his schedule was a little bit busy, so he couldn't make today.
Oh, that's too bad. That would have got our numbers up, our ratings up, for sure. But maybe next time.
I'm a huge fan of the original Space Jam, and I remember going to the cinema to watch it when I was a young boy. So can you tell us more about how you landed the gig as well as the work you produced on the original Space Jam?
Sure. Well, I first heard about the project through a good friend of ours, Uli Meyer, who was actually operating his own big animation studio at the time. And Uli was actually crewing up for Space Jam when we heard about it. In fact, it was Uli that recommended Stardust for the gig as well, because Warner Bros. Just basically needed as many hands on deck. So through Uli's recommendation, we were introduced to Warner Brothers, and then after a couple of meetings, we were awarded a couple of minutes on the film. So as luck would have it, we were already pretty much crewed up, having just finished work on All Dogs Go to Heaven 2. So I had a good amount of artists already in the studio. So yeah, that was a fortunate time, you know, coming off one project and then landing another one straight away. So that was pretty good. And Space Jam just was an amazing project to work on.
Nice, thanks. You know, we've done sequence direction, animation, design, and those are pretty self-explanatory, right? But what about Leica rail, cleanup, and effects? What exactly is that?
A Leica reel is very much the same as an animatic, which is basically the shot storyboard panels all kind of put together in chronological order, shot under the camera or just shot in sequential order, and then timed to a rough soundtrack. We would often use like a scratch track, which is kind of rough, basic music and sound effects, and maybe some rough audio dialogue. And this formed the bed of the rough guide, if you like, for how the animation and the film would look like. So this has been the process for many years, since the early days of Disney, where they would shoot the storyboards and against the soundtrack. It's a great guide, a rough blueprint for the finished movie. And yeah, cleanup's basically after the rough animation is done, there's a department that's already established of very strong key cleanup artists and assistants in between us. And these are artists that take the rough drawings and clean up the roughs onto another sheet of paper and refine the look of the drawing, referencing very closely the model sheets, which is a great representation of what all the characters will look like. And it's a way that the artist can keep all the characters on model so they don't vary, because everyone's got their own slightly different style in drawing. So the model sheets and the key cleanup department takes care of model and refining the line. And we also, just so you know, we may even show some examples here, but the animators would often, you know, add timing charts to their animation, so that each key drawing will have a timing chart which will kind of represent the spacing for all the drawings, so that the flow of animation is timed perfectly. And so these timing charts would be transferred onto the key cleanup drawings for not only the key cleanup artists to follow, but also the in-betweeners, the assistants to the key cleanup artists that would actually space all the in-between drawings, and they would use these guides, you know, these timing charts as a reference for the spacing.
Interesting. Well, okay, and what about effects?
The effects were similar to the animation. You know, in the past, I've even sort of animated quite a few different bits and pieces in terms of effects. And for us, it was like drawn effects. So, for example, with the shot of Swackhammer blowing, puffing on his cigar, and all the smoke turns into, you know, particles into magic dust, which ends up becoming the smoke that Michael Jordan in the fantasy sequence sort of rides on. I mean, I animated that, the effects on that, and it's something. So that's just one effects pass, and the other effect pass was the actual, you know, the vapor, the smoke that comes from the cigar. There's so many different types of effects. Sometimes you get water effects, 2D drawn and animated water effects, and there are many examples for this. But so we would, the effects would often be done once the character animation has already been done, so that they can match the animation to the characters, you know, perfectly.
So I'm just curious. So how do you do the effects exactly? I mean, is it like an animation cell? So you're literally just, you know, drawing some smoke or little dots, or, you know, whatever the effect is, and then it just goes as an overlay, or how does that work?
Well, with traditional animation, it's often the same process that you apply for a character animation, you know, where you're drawing the characters key to key, sometimes straight ahead, but often key to key. You would use the same process in for effects, you know, on paper. An animator, an effects animator would rough out the animation, then a cleanup artist would clean that level up as well. And, you know, often with effects animation, it will be done pretty much straight ahead, you know, because you've already got the guide or the timing of the shot that the effects will fall in. And if it's matching, in the case of Swackhammer blowing the smoke, you know you've got all the drawings there, so you can follow the path of action for the effects.
We had talked about in our previous video how, you know, sometimes you wear so many hats in a project, but Space Jam in particular, you had so many different roles. How does that happen? You know, how come you're very specialized, obviously, but at the same time there's so many different assignments to you. So how does that work?
Well, it's I think when you're running a studio, I mean, in the case of Stardust, it's kind of a relatively small boutique studio, although I think on Space Jam we had crewed up to around 50, 55 artists, around that amount. And so the role for me was obviously running the studio, as well as delegating to the right crew members to handle various chunks on Space Jam, you know, from the management producing side down to even legal The day-to-day creative side, it was more sort of managing and overseeing the animation at the time with my partner, Rob Stephenhart. I was taking care primarily the dream sequence, fantasy sequence. So designing that, storyboarding that, and then finally animating the key animation from that sequence. So it's basically whatever's there to do. You know, sometimes once you start the boarding process, then you can isolate, you know, who does what from that point.
Right.
And then it's just a case of getting the work done. So it's not really, when you're in a smaller setup like ours, it's not really one specific role. It's many. You know, sometimes it's dealing with certain crew members that have you know, whatever issues or concerns, or they need a certain guidance. So we're, you know, directing and supervising them, and at the same time, whenever I have a chance, I'll get at my desk and start animating or designing. We had, I guess, a bit of a ramp up at the start of Space Jam, in that it allowed us at times to have, you know, proper meetings with the producers at Warner's to ascertain the exact brief and a clear understanding of what was required. And then it's a case of actually just, planning out the sequences and then drawing them up, you know. So a little bit of effects one day, a bit of character animation at the next, some design work at the beginning, storyboarding. So it's, you're wearing many different hats to get the thing done.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Hey, so you briefly mentioned about the fantasy sequence or fantasy dream sequence. So what sequence were created by you, and how much freedom did you actually have to create them?
Well, initially, you know, once the boarding on Space Jam was quite exact, in that we were matching to you know, various live action sort of plates, but at the beginning we boarded the section, and then the live action was pretty much shot from what we had in the boards, and then the CG was planned accordingly. So it was kind of clear what needed to be done. And for me, I was able to animate a few shots before the fantasy sequence. In particular, the Monstars shot, you know, where Swackhammer basically gives the ultimatum to Michael Jordan, you know, that if you lose the match, then you become one of my cartoon characters in the Maroon cartoon world.
What about we raise the stakes a little bit?
Interesting.
If we win, you give the NBA players their talent back.
But what if we win?
If you win, you get me.
And then the Monstars basically say,
"Good deal, boss."
So that one I quite liked. I mean, 'cause it's nice to draw all the Monstars all in one shot. And then, as I say, animating the Vapor and Michael Jordan on the Star. I animated the scene where Michael Jordan sat at the desk signing autographs all day long, and then Swackhammer pulls the lever, and Michael Jordan falls down, you know, an imaginary toilet. And no one ever picked up on that gag, and lands on the ground, and he's already got the ball and chain around him. The other animator was on the sequence with me was Tony Tulipano, who's an exceptional strong artist. He was really great, and in fact, Tony and I flew to Los Angeles to meet Ivan Reitman, who was the overall executive producer on the film. And it was to Ivan Reitman that I eventually pitched the look of the graphic novel kind of cartoon version of Michael Jordan and the designs, etc., and they were accepted by him. I'm particularly sort of happy with the close-up sequence of Michael Jordan's reaction, because I think it's just to come up with a cartoon look for MJ was, kind of pleasing. They kind of had resemblance to MJ, but at the same time was stylized enough that I could sort of fit it within this kind of fantasy kind of nightmare scenario. And that was a golden opportunity for me to design that kind of look, not only the characters, but that whole kind of backdrop based on everything I kind of grew up with, loving comics, and graphic novels. And so
it does look great. I think the art of Space Jam is something that you can literally just put up on your wall, and it'll be a big topic for conversations. But anyway, talking about concept art, can you tell us more about the concept designs that you created for Space Jam? I saw a couple of different Michael Jordans. One seems to be more friendly in animated cartoon-like version with warm colors and a big smile. And I don't think I saw that one in the actual film. And then I saw another one that you've made that seems to be the one that actually made to the scene in the movie where Jordan is animated.
Well, the process on any project is one of evolution. I think you start initially with just a first stab, a first bunch of roughs, and eventually home in the look, which will sort of be right for the finished product. And the MJ designs were no different. I bashed out a whole bunch. I did so many different versions. And eventually we got to the point that we ended up with in the film. So it was a bit of back and forth, sending examples to Warner Brothers and getting, basically a thumbs up, we're going in the right direction. And then the final color scheme, incorporated the whole kind of slightly nightmarish kind of scenario, because I think the idea was not to make it seem really pristine and beautiful and wonderful and cartoony. This was something that in a way MJ would dread being part of, to be sort of swallowed into this cartoon world, operated by Swackhammer, the villain of the film.
How did that particular concept art that we just talked about of Michael Jordan get picked to be in the film? What was the process like? Was it a vote or just an executive decision and say, okay, let's pick that one?
Thinking back, it probably, I just created a whole bunch, as I say, of roughs and back and forth. And eventually I think Ivan, I think it was around the time of the meeting, in Los Angeles, where I presented a bunch of layouts and the look development, if you like, and the designs, and it was just yep. Michael, not Michael, Ivan Reitman was just basically seeing a whole bunch of stuff. There's so many other artists from other studios, so his time was really quite precious and minimal. So when it got to me pitching my section, it was just a very quick yes, you can go ahead with this. And so I think I was in LA for maybe one more day after that, and then we flew back and just continued, knowing that that particular look was approved. So the final decision, came and fell with Ivan Reitman.
Can you tell us more about the concept arts you created for the movie?
Well, we did a bunch of stuff, Tony and I, and with the design of the aliens and just kind of the look. It was, for me, it was something that had to fit with this graphic backdrop. So the thick and thin line that I incorporated for Michael Jordan, the heavy contrast, dark shadows, derives obviously from graphic novels and comics. So in my mind, I had a clear idea already of where I wanted to go with this, and so the backgrounds and the look and the aliens all kind of slipped into that kind of graphic line and feel. And often when I work with these brush pens, right? They're amazing. They're very quick to put a line down and not get too kind of finicky, and not to noodle the drawings too much. So if I've got a rough color erased pencil, whatever, I would quickly go over in a brush pen just to kind of get that kind of strong graphic look. And that served us well for the whole look development for the fantasy sequence, and certainly for the designs of MJ.
When you talk about the fantasy sequence, I know that the basketball court with stairs was part of it, and it was probably, I don't know, maybe not even 5 seconds that came up on screen. But when I think of Space Jam, that's one of the scenes that comes to my mind. The basketball court with stairs. Were you the one who actually created the basketball court?
I think it may have been a combination of me and Tony, but I know that I've got a layout there, and there was a rough layout that was drawn by Tony as well. But I think in the end, as I say, everything was very cubist. Everything was very simplified in order to kind of streamline the animation. There were a couple of layouts for that I drew. And that ended up as the final element. So I think with all of it, when you're boarding these things, if the idea is clearly defined and locked into your mind, I think the end results don't really vary that much. What you end up with in the board ends up very, very closely in the finished film. And I think that's because the idea in the end was fairly clear in terms of what we wanted as a look. So the stairs and that little kind of arena became quite iconic. The signing of autographs became quite iconic, and there was a nice sort of cross dissolve there between the smoke that Swackhammer blows out and the particles, and then as that crosses over to the panning shot of MJ signing, and then the subsequent shot there of when Swackhammer sort of pulls the lever. So as they say, simplest is best. If you can get the idea across in with a few simple strokes, then and a few simple shots, then that's the best way. And as I might have mentioned to you before, there were a couple of versions of the fantasy sequence that I boarded, maybe 3 in total.
So what was your favorite Space Jam character to draw, and why?
As I say, I loved drawing the Monstars. I mean, they were a challenge to a certain extent, but they were fun. The size of these characters, because they were really quite large and on screen, and when compared to some of the other characters like Bugs, etc. But they were fun, and of course, animating a character that I designed for the film was a real fun big plus. So Michael Jordan was fun to animate, but it was all fun, like I say. I mean, when you're in the trenches working on a project, you don't always have time, obviously, to reflect. This is you're just busy getting the work done. And making sure that everything, is on schedule and within budget. So often it isn't until maybe, years later you can look back and go, oh, that was a fun project. It was cool. You don't remember all the, the hassle and the pain sometimes of delivering these projects through, but afterwards, you've got the finished product. So always we strive for 100%, because I think at the end of the day, you don't remember the twists and turns, but the end product is there forever. So if you've been able to put 100 or 150% into that design, into that bit of animation or finished film, then it's there for the whole world to see.
Did you ever think that Space Jam would become such an iconic film?
No, not really. I mean, no. I mean, it was, at the time, it was just another project that landed, in our laps, and we just got on with it. But years later, you hear from people, wow, I grew up with that film, and when you hear from fans alike, people that have watched these projects and these films. So you hope, in a way, when you're working on a project, that it will stand the test of time, that it's not just good for a month or a year, but it will, you know, stand alone as part of cinema history, you know. And I think Space Jam was quite innovative at the time. You know, it really was one of the first films that had the combination of CG animation with traditional hand-drawn animation, live action, and VFX. You know, it was all in one, very similar to Roger Rabbit in many ways. I think with the difference that there was, you know, the added element of computer generated animation, and it was being farmed out at so many different boutique studios across the globe. So it was a very, you know, smart way of producing a film in a short amount of time. And you know, one of the producers that we worked with, who was part of Warner's, Ron Tipp, who sadly is no longer with us, I found him to be extremely good with accommodating all the studios. He certainly helped us a lot, and was always there for us. His famous quote to me once was, "Look, Dino, I come from a live action background. I don't know much about animation, but I will hope that I can sort of solve any issues or any problems you may have. Just run it by me. Any questions you have, or any concerns." So he was good to his word, and he was always there for us. You know, that's wonderful to get from a producer.
Now, before we move to our last question, I just want to remind everyone to make sure to subscribe to the channel and invite you to watch our next show coming up soon, in which Dino talks about his participation in the production of Hunger Games. Now, Dino, talking about production, me being an animation art collector, I'm curious, what happened to all these storyboards and concept art you made for the production of Space Jam?
A lot of it still exists and is in boxes, basically. I know it's one of our ideas to kind of push the original art more. If there are fans out there that do love these individual projects and would like to have their own particular piece of artwork from a project, whether it's from Hunger Games or Space Jam, you know, we do have the original drawings archived.
Well, talking about fans, you know, I'll take the opportunity as well to invite anyone to comment. We do plan to bring fans to talk to us in the upcoming shows. So, you know, if you want to join us, maybe have a chat about animation, feel free to drop a comment, and you'll soon hear more from us in regards to joining the channel and have a quick chat with us. Anyway, you know, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really look forward to talking to you again about Hunger Games. I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Robbie. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Thank you everyone for watching. See you next time. Bye.